Garrett Blevins here, and this is kind of the heavy week. Right now, I've modified my training a little bit to work on a 3-week wave progression. Just kind of feeling out how that works instead of running the longer 5-week blocks. It's basically kind of the same training I've been doing, but I'm throwing in a few different things to see how it works, and probably that will come up in guided programming in later iterations of that as I continue learning more and more. You'll see here, this is kind of the heavy high bar day. And since I'm still pretty far out from competition, about 14 weeks, something like that, still doing a lot of variations of the main movements. I'm focusing a lot on quad strength, and high bar is really the best way for me to do that, as long as I don't let my hips shoot back out of the hole. And so had a pretty big PR. I haven't done fours on high bar in a long time, I think maybe ever. But my 5-rep high bar, the heaviest I had for a set of 5 written down was, I think, 460. And no matter which way I slice it, this was a big PR. I'm going to say it's probably about a 50-pound PR over what I've done for a set of 4 before. And it moved pretty well. I think I had at least one more rep in me. And I was kind of surprised by this. I had not had a really great training with high bar on other days, but this went really well. So I was really pretty happy about that, even though it tired me out. Oh yeah, I think you can't always see the 25s from that front angle, and so there it is. It is in fact 545s. So I then did a 8% fatigue drop, which is about a drop of 3 RPE. A lot of times I drop my RPE instead of going by a percentage, because depending on the rep range that you use and how your RPE charts are scheduled out, it may just not work out. So it's kind of all the same, but I prioritize dropping RPE, which is to say 495 should feel like a 5.5 RPE based off of the estimated 1-rep max that came out of that heavy set of 545 at 9. You'll notice it's 50 pounds less, but the RPE is only half an RPE lower. The reason for that is I'm repeating 495 over and over again until it feels like it ain't in a half, and that's an RPE drop of 3. It gets difficult when you either have different rep ranges for your initial set and your back off set. Here I have 4s, but it can get a little confusing. It also gets confusing if you're going to a different RPE on your back off work than your initial set, and so the calculations can get a little funky. But that's what's going on there. Close grip bench went pretty well. I think this tired me out for a little bit later in the week, though. I've been benching a lot with really high volume, and I'm definitely in a little bit of fatigue debt, even though I'm not feeling too beat up. But it definitely showed up later. You'll notice this is 395 for 4. It should have been 5, but I missed it. And you'll notice later in the week I also miss a set of 5 and end up doing only a set of 4. So anyways, that's just been something I've been dealing with. Sometimes I would rather cut a set 1 rep short and stay in the RPE 9 or 9.5 range than go an extra rep and grind out an RPE 10, though that is what I end up doing later in the week. I decided on my back off work to play around with some tempo close grip work, and I'm only doing the slow eccentric on and then a fast concentric movement on that. I'm not doing both of them slow, but I definitely felt my triceps getting some good work that way, so I may keep up with that. This was sumo from the next day, training a little bit later at night, have to kind of mess with my schedule a little bit. 585 moved really well, really happy with that. And I had taped up my thumbs, just trying to protect them a little bit, and the tape slipped on this, which I think led me to be a little slower than I would have been otherwise. But it still moved really well for 635, so feeling pretty good about sumo right now. Need to lock down that hook grip, but progress is being made, and I really liked how that 635 moved. That was a PR for hook grip for me regardless, even though I think I have more in me. But again, this far out from competition, no reason to push the singles. I'm then doing back off work for reps. I believe sets of 5 here, and doing another 3 RPE drop. So you'll see here that even though it's a drop of 3 RPE, this is about 7% fatigue. And that's just because of the difference from going to singles to sets of 5 and the difference in the way that the RP works there. But regardless, these sets of 5 moved really well. I believe I ended up doing 3 back off sets, and I think all 3 of them are in here. The reason for that is I've really been going back over and looking at my form and trying to make sure that I'm in good shape there. I've been doing a lot of work on my hips, and I've been strengthening my abductors a lot, and it's definitely paying off. I just was not able to move weight as fast as you saw that first pull. Really, with any amount of weight over the last few training cycles, it's been pretty rough. Though I still think I'm having a little bit of impingement with my leg, though some of it is just that quad muscle sometimes looks like it's pulling forward, and that's just kind of the way the muscle lays on my leg. I may need to roll out so that things slide a little bit better. I then went in for a heavy low bar day and ended up with 585 for 5. It's not anything amazing or astounding. I mean, that's not a great set or anything. But this far out from competition, when I've also done a really heavy high bar squat earlier in the week, is pretty good for me. I can usually go heavy about once a week on squats, and then I'm pretty fried for the rest of it. And with that single on sumo, even though it moved pretty well, being in here, I'm actually pretty happy with this. And I think it was probably about a 9. Looking back at it, it moved a little bit better than I even really thought it did. So I decided to keep the weight the same and do a rep drop instead. So I did a set of 5, and then I dropped down 2 reps. So I'm doing a set of 3 here. And I was going to repeat that until I got to an RPE 9. And I got to an RPE 9 on the first set. I think the reason for that is I didn't have the same stance. My stance looks off on this lift. I may have rushed it a little bit, I'm not sure, but that definitely was a 9 there. I think that 3rd rep there was harder than my 5th rep on the first set. But that's what rep drops are. And there's something that will really help you use heavier weight and kind of focus on a neurological adaptation. It's better to do them with lower rep ranges than higher rep ranges, in my opinion, such as going from a 5 to a 3 instead of a 10 to an 8 or something like that. But that's something I've been working with. Here's this heavy comp grip. This was supposed to be a set of 5, and I ended up only doing 4, and that was really all I had. I even had to cheat on the last rep. But I was messing around with my grip and went a little bit wider on this day than I've gone on some other ones. I think really my close grip is starting to catch up to my regular competition grip. But that's also because I'm training my close grip a whole lot right now in this training cycle. And so that's pretty much to be expected. My body's kind of defaulting that way. But anyways, this was kind of a disappointing day on bench press. But again, that's what happens when you're doing a lot of volume training. I probably should have been a little bit more conservative even in my warm-ups, because I had done 395 for 4 earlier in the week and fatigued myself. But regardless, that was the week in training. Finished up a day after that with some high bar that I didn't film and some more close grip work, but that was about it. And I want to continue on from where we left off last week, talking about the original sin and what James has to say about that a little bit. James writes, "What is the source of quarrels and conflicts among you? Is not the source your pleasures, or your desires in some translations, that wage war in your members, that is, within the members of your body? You lust, or you just," that word lust can kind of have sexual overtones in English. That's not what it's saying, but it's not only sexual overtones, and I just want to mention that. Think of desire in general. Much like Adam and Eve desired to be God and to create themselves in the image that they had desired. Think that kind of desire when you see lust here. It's the strong desire. But James writes, "You desire and do not have, so you commit murder. You are envious and cannot obtain, so you fight and quarrel. You do not have because you do not ask. You ask and do not receive because you ask with wrong motives, so that you may spend it on your pleasures. You adulteresses, do you not know that friendship with the world is hostility towards God? Therefore, whoever wishes to be a friend of the world makes him or herself an enemy of God." What this is talking about is that same desire to take things which are not legitimately yours. We see this in the original sin when Adam and Eve tried to take the position of the Creator and make themselves God by doing things that God has commanded them not to do. They are attempting to take the reins of their own destiny and make themselves. This can be seen, though, on a much smaller scale. somebody wants the land that belongs to somebody else, so they go to war against them. Or they scheme to steal the land or purchase the land or do something to get their way. This happens a lot in business. It happens a lot in personal relationships, just between people. It's these desires for things that we want where we will use people as a means to an end. We're not doing things for others or with their best interests in mind. Rather, we're doing it with our pleasures and our desires in mind. That's why when James talks about asking, this asking is asking God. But God is not going to give somebody something if they're asking with this worldly motivation, this motivation to spend it on themselves, to use it in a sinful, hurtful way. God is going to give things to people when they ask in God's ways, when they pray according to God's will for their life. If someone prays a prayer, and I really do believe this, if somebody asks God to help them and teach them to be a more loving, caring, and respectful person, God will honor that and will help you. I don't think that's going to be something automatic, like you ask God and then God forces you to do it. But I think if you are investigating and seeking to become a better version of yourself, to really live into who you really are, and you pray to God and ask God to help you and to guide you and to bring people into your life to assist you, that will happen. And I encourage all of you out there to do that. I wish more people would ask for that type of thing from God instead of, asking for all sorts of other things, asking for what they desire. Whether, some people, especially, this isn't a knock on single people, but this is something I struggled with, was some of the things I wanted when I was single. I wanted to be married. I wanted to have a wife, and I would pray about that and was always looking around and trying to figure out who that was. And it wasn't the right time. Like, my wife wasn't there. I didn't meet my wife till I was in college. And so all that time I was looking around and trying to figure out who it was and all that. It wasn't what I was supposed to be doing. I could have been doing other things. I should have instead been praying, Lord, what is your will? And seeking to understand what God's plan for my life was at that time. But again, that's hard when you have those desires inside of you that are really calling for your attention. However, if you get too attached to those desires, which may or may not be contrary to God's will, they can really put you into some hot water. They can get you into trouble, and they can lead down some poor paths. So regardless, James sees this as kind of the core of all human fighting, all human conflict. And we're going to be talking a little bit more about that, but if one could accept who they are made by God, instead of seeking to be these other things that these desires are leading them to be, then they could have a sense of happiness. It wouldn't be happiness through the gratification of their desires, but it would be happiness through being who God made them to be. What this means is that not every desire or every impulse we have is who we really are. There are these things, the Bible talks about it as sin that's dwelling in you. Here it's called friendship with the world. These things that are inside people that aren't good. So it doesn't mean just because we're accepting who we are that we affirm every aspect or every impulse. What that means rather is to accept who we were really made to be by God. And that takes deep investigation and prayerful consideration, asking God to teach us who we are, because sometimes we really don't know. And oftentimes, and I really think this is a more accurate statement, we are in a dynamic process of becoming who we are and learning who we are. You don't just know that right off the bat. In any case, this video is going a little long, a little rambly, so I will call it here. I hope wherever you're at out there, you're doing well. Blessings.